Hi, everybody. I'm Nicole Rawson, the founder of Screen Time Clinic. If you're watching this webinar as a replay, I just want to quickly introduce myself and also our guest, Dr. Dana Tappen. And we're going to jump right into the good content here. For Screen Time Clinic, we work with a lot of professionals to support families because we really want to prioritize the human interactions and all those little things that it takes, whether you have a toddler, an infant, a little one, a tween, or a teen, or a young adult in your house. So don't underestimate the power of intentional parenting and understanding how all these little things that we're doing contribute to a really well-rounded, happy person and set them up for success later in life. So with that, Dana, how do you, Dr. Dana, should we call
Yeah,
you?
yeah. Either is fine.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and let's just jump right into it.
Yeah, so I am a speech language pathologist. I have more than 20 years experience in the field. I've worked pretty much with every age range from birth to like adults, like 60, 70-year-olds. I specialize in social communication and executive functioning and kind of really the intersection between the two. And really my role is to help include parents and have parents find ways to find strategies that will help support their children at home, or if you're a parent who are struggling on your own, to be able to have more efficiency in your house and to feel a little more supported and less, like you're just trying to survive.
Yeah, I love that. That's actually happens with our coaching with our Tech Express program. We're redoing the whole family dynamic, removing screens and then replenishing the routines. And a lot of times it's very hard for some parents to wrap their mind around like, okay, now we have to have a schedule. Now we have to, do this
Yeah.
differently, that differently, and to post things on the wall or on the fridge, and to really keep track of our time and to, I call it reparenting ourselves
Yeah.
even. So yes, that's great to hear that you work with adults too, because so much of what we do and multitask with has really become very overwhelming for all ages. And we
Yeah.
see that because of a lot of it is the scrolling and just the mass amount of information we have. So I'm really excited to talk with you more about this. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can always hit the little speed up button in the corner because we know we want to get you all this information, and you can listen to us talk a little faster, but singular focus is always the best. And we really want to be cognizant of what information we're consuming and just really enjoy what we have to offer here today in our pearls of knowledge. So tell me some of the strategies that you're seeing, either related to screen time or maybe not related to screen time, but tell me what you're seeing in your field of work.
Yeah, so I think part of the challenge is often when we have children who have social or executive functioning needs, often there could be a family history. And so sometimes what I'm finding is the parents themselves also have executive functioning needs. And so they are struggling with how to organize themselves, but then also how to provide that for their children. And so sometimes what happens is the reliance on screens. It's an easy way these days to kind of help mitigate all that. The challenge really with that, especially in the young children, is kind of multifaceted. One is when children are on screens for an excessive amount of time, that takes away from time that they should be doing other activities. And really, children learn best. The research is very clear on this, is during play. And when I
Yeah.
say children, I don't mean just young children, teens. You learn to problem solve, you learn to plan ahead, you learn about organization. All of these executive functioning skills are developed very young and through play. And so when kids are on devices for an excessive amount of time, then they're losing those opportunities to do that. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing that I think is really unfortunate is the marketing for these educational apps for the
Yeah.
young children. And it's, improve their speech.
Yeah.
And really the
Learn
research,
to read.
yeah, And really, the research shows that that's not the best way for children to learn. They need to be learning through play. And in fact, the research shows when children are using screens in a passive way, that it actually increases their risk for speech and language disorders. So we
Yeah.
really want to make sure that we're looking at how we're using screens. There is ways such as FaceTime with family members that would be an interactive way that you could have that time.
Mhm.
But passive uses of screen is really where the challenge becomes. The other
Absolutely.
aspect is, think about, I'm going to date myself here. When in our childhood, we played outside and we made mud pies and we dug in the dirt and we used our hands to stir the mud and the water together. And now what's happening is kids aren't using those gestures. All they have to do is click a button and I'm going to
Right.
add water, and click a button and I'm going to add, maybe we're dragging, but they're
Mhm.
not using their hands. And executive functioning is very closely tied with gestures. And so when kids aren't using those gestures, then now we're getting a delay in those gestures, which then can impact the executive functioning region of the brain. And they're not planning, they're not problem solving, they're not getting creative and using different objects in place of all of these key symbolic play aspects that are really important for young children.
Yeah, I love that. And all the research that we've noted definitely supports that. There's even some now that says reading on a device versus reading on a book activates the ADHD and autism
Mm,
pathway in a brain in some unknown fashion. And
mm,
so it's the electronics, excuse me, and that flat screen, maybe because you don't have the physical turning of the pages, even that little part. And we know that from teaching and being in the classroom, using a pencil to write down notes really activates that brain body pathway also. And free play could just be by themselves in their room doing something that doesn't even seem like play to us, just
yeah.
causing a mess and maybe getting into a little bit of trouble. As long as they're not in any danger, the childhood really needs to be more messy and more interactive and more with the parent too. I feel like a lot of parents don't know that every time they hand over device, they're harming the parent-child relationship too, and they're chaining their child to them for the long term also, because they're not learning the skills of independence, and
Mhm.
yet they're being captivated in an unnatural way that's pulling them away from the parents. So it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. You want your child to be independent and to grow up healthy and have that sense of independence and learning the skills, but and of course, parents don't want to be bothered all the time either. But it's like you're winning the toddler years, you're winning the tween years, you win the tweens, you win the teens. But if there's some disconnect, a lot of my clients don't realize there's a disconnect till later. Like you said,
Mhm.
sometimes it's even adults. Tell us about what your kind of therapies look like and what you do and how it's best supported off screen and how that interferes too, because we're seeing if we have tutoring or interventions or coaching in other areas, even therapy. This is why mental health has exploded in the last 6 years, 10 years, mental health problems, and yet we've had tons more access to therapy, and yet that still hasn't made a noticeable difference. And
Mhm.
I believe, and a lot of people in my industry do, that the underlying causes of all this digital media stimulation are negating all these great things we're trying to do for ourselves and for our children.
I think one of the challenges is that video games are designed to be highly stimulating. And then when you go to a face-to-face or even young children in a classroom, a teacher is never going to be able to meet that stimulation that a video game provides. And so if the child's constantly being programmed and expecting that amount of stimulation, that yes, it will be hard to pay attention. Yes, it will be hard to focus in a classroom because it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same match.
Right.
And
And that takes
so,
practice. It takes practice.
yes,
And that's what emotional regulation is. That's what self-regulation is, to practice being uncomfortable in your own skin, doing things you don't want to do. I mean, what percent of things do you think we do in life that we really don't want to be doing?
there's quite a few.
Right? Every day, like, don't really want to get out of bed, but I need to.
Laundry
Don't
again.
want to not
Okay.
have to have cookies for lunch, but I need to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just remember, like, we love our kids and we want them to have a quote unquote happy, fun childhood and life. But the reality is, they really need the practice of being comfortable in their own skin and learning these strategies. I hear a lot about ed tech being gamified,
Mhm.
meeting kids where they are. You know, we have to have more technology in the classroom to meet these kids, but the research shows that's the reward pathway of their brain. That's not the critical thinking pathways that are being stimulated. And their frontal cortex is actually shrinking from that type of constant stimulation. So I would caution anyone that says, oh, we just need more ed tech and teachers need to be more engaging and fancy and doing different things, that's actually that's big tech ed tech talking. That's their lingo for wanting that.
And I feel bad, for parents. Feel for them because, the demands on, I feel like this day and age are different. And I feel like the marketing that they're receiving is not necessarily the correct information. And so, I do believe that parents do the best they can with the information they have. And so, my goal is really to just provide some education about different ways that we can kind of shift things. There's a ton of, really great options in terms of reading. The research is really clear when you listen to audiobooks,
Yep.
that it really does help improve reading. So it doesn't mean that they have to be physically reading. So, for young kids, there's a Yodo player, there's the
Yep.
Tony. You can get Audible for your older kids. Alexa will play information. So there's
Yep.
ways to provide some entertainment, so to speak, where they can have that access without necessarily having to be a screen.
Yes, great idea, great accommodation. And we also in schools, there is a way to advocate for your kids to have less ed tech in their classroom. If you're not ready to go all full out and do a classroom or a full school or district lobby, you can ask for the teacher to make individual education adjustments. We call it a screen modification request, so that they're aware that you're being sensitive to that at home. Maybe your child has a digital media sensitivity. Maybe they're working with their self-regulation and executive functioning, and you want to have that supported in the classroom. Teachers are very used to accommodating all different types of learners and varying their types of instruction. We used to just have it be like visual learners and auditory learners, and now it's digital learners too. A lot of kids are very, very sensitive to digital media, and it dysregulates them rather than helping them learn the material. Or they get sucked into it and they want to sit for hours doing their math game during recess when they should be out, or coming in at lunch when they should be sitting around awkwardly with their peers, sitting in
Mhm.
their reality of learning how to interact and make a little bit of progress.
I mean, the other thing I think that parents maybe aren't aware of always is they assume that the devices given to you by the school are very heavily modified
Oh,
with
yeah.
controls,
Safe.
and that is
Right.
not, yeah, and that is not
No.
typically the case.
No,
So,
that's true. So, and kids, that's another false thing that it leads to, that, oh, kids need this because they need to learn how to use technology. Technology isn't going away, but technology is built to be so instantly user friendly that kids and second graders, first graders can figure out ways around the security settings, or even know that there aren't any on it very easily. So there's no learning curve per se. If you're teaching your kid coding in high school, that coding is not going to be relevant in 1 or 2 years. So until they're an adult and they're in a college setting and really interested in that as a profession, I feel like coding is the new coal mine of technology. It's an extremely unhealthy profession. They're really worked very hard in a sedentary lifestyle in front of a screen. And just because you're good at something doesn't mean that it needs to be a career choice or something that you choose to do if it's going to impact your health.
Yeah.
And there might be some other options, or if you have problems with self-regulation, to choose a career that exacerbates those problems is really something to be aware of. Also, we've had people that have career changes and doing things more outdoors with their hands because they find that it helps them better during their downtimes.
Yeah. The other thing I think that screens do is deprive children of boredom, which is such an important skill, is to learn how to be bored and what to do with your boredom.
Mhm.
And as an adult, there's a lot of times that we are doing things that we don't like, or we think are boring, or listening to people we think that are
Mhm.
boring, but we still have to figure out a way to attend and glean
Yes.
information. Maybe it's a presenter that, or a college professor, or,
Mhm.
you still have to be able to access that information and be able to do that without having your attention diverted to something more highly stimulating.
Yeah, or to be disruptive, or to have it impact yourself so negatively that you can't even sit and pretend to be interested and pretend to nod and be engaged in a appropriate way, because those are the things that really impact adults and young adults and prevent them from seeing the successes that they want to have. So yeah, that's a great point. And I know so many parents just don't want their kids to be uncomfortable. And he doesn't,
It's
I hear
hard.
it so many times. They don't have any friends. He doesn't have any friends at school. He's so anxious. He doesn't want to do this. He doesn't want to do that. I don't want to take him. We have a wonderful webinar two prior to this with a young woman who talked about, she's in college, Sophia, talked about her screen light childhood all the way up till age
Mhm.
16, and how much she hated going to all these activities that her mom would take her to, and was crying in the car, I don't want to go to karate, I don't want to go. And she's like, but then after 3 classes, I got used to it. And looking back, like now I'm more confident because I have those skills. I didn't want to do junior lifeguards. I hated
Yeah.
water. It was so scary. She's like, I just want every parent to know that it is worth encouraging and insisting that your child try new things. That's part of childhood, and you're not harming them. If you're hitting your child, you are harming them. Let's
Mhm.
be clear about that. But having your child do things with other adults and other peers is not going to harm them, even if they sit there for 2 hours and watch their peers and have other adults who are trained with other kids to say, hey, how you doing? Okay, get a drink of water, try this, try that. Hey, you know, that is a learning and important aspect in of itself. So I'm glad you
Yeah.
pointed that out.
I've heard that somewhere, but I like to say, being a mom and dad is easy. That's the fun part. You get to do, but being a parent is not always fun. And we often have to make choices that are hard, that our kids don't like. But we do it because we feel like that's what's best for them.
Yeah.
And so, you know, getting them out or included in activities, there are, I understand that sometimes the fight that comes with that, especially at the beginning when you're removing something that is highly stimulating and so desirable. But there are strategies that you can put in place that, after school clubs where you just don't pick them up for school and they're not allowed to come home
Yep.
until after it's over. There's, find ways to kind of work within the system that you have to help get them more access to more activities that don't involve sitting on
Yes.
their
Yes.
computer.
And there's a lot of cost effective ways to do that too. I do hear some
Mhm.
excuses from parents about, oh, they don't have any classes, it's not available. I've called, I've asked, but really, if you have someone else help you, or you go into the school and you express your need, like, I need to find some cost effective ways. How can we work with this? A little bit of effort and creativity really goes a long way in supporting your child and supporting you, because yeah, it's never been harder to be a parent. There was a Surgeon General warning about that
Mhm.
even. a few months ago that we have
Wow.
on our website that says being a parent is hazardous to your health these days. And mainly because they're fighting against all the content on screen time and all the harm that it's doing to their child. They're not able to naturally raise their child and have them follow a healthy pathway without a lot of intervention and thoughtfulness around it. So I just really want to encourage anyone that's watching this, reach out to Dr. Dana or myself and schedule a consultation and send us an email because there is help out there. And even I know I do free consultations. We can get you information. Even if it's not using our services, we can provide some pretty good personalized information in a short amount of time, or here to help you with a bigger plan. Do you want to talk any more about that? Like, what does it look like if somebody's needing help? What prompts
Yeah.
them to get help from you?
Typically, usually it's either a parent reaches out. Sometimes it's a parent that's reaching out for themselves and their child. They're realizing like my child's struggling, but I also am struggling and I don't know how to help. And so that's actually kind of like a more newer influx of clients that I'm getting of parents feeling overwhelmed for themselves and for their child. So it can look a variety of different ways. That's the nice thing about private practice is I can be flexible and I really want to do what's most functional. I'm not looking to do a set predetermined goals. I'm really trying to help do the most impactful strategies in your home that will help you. So sometimes that's me coming into your house for a consultation and you showing me what's not working and me providing some suggestions of things that might work. Something as easy as, you know, transitioning from one thing to another, and you've got multiple children and they all don't want to do it. So they're, now they're all ganging up. And so it's making it as predictable as possible. On Monday, this person goes first. On Tuesday, this person goes
Yes.
and making it as predictable as possible. Also providing upfront explanations. Sometimes the challenge is not necessarily that you're not going to do something, it's that it's a surprise to the child. And so if you provide the information up front and say, hey, just wanted to let you know, tonight after dinner, we're not having dessert. Instead of waiting until after dinner and your child has expected dessert the whole time, now, they're like, wait a second, now you're going to get a bigger fight. So sometimes it's just pre-planning and providing that information up front. Sometimes it's doing direct work with the client and then providing strategies to carry over in the home. So I'll provide some strategies, we'll figure out which one works best, and then we'll send it home. And really, in the home or at school is really where it works. My time is going to, even if I do direct intervention, is going to be so limited. It's really about helping parents and the clients know how to implement the strategies themselves.
Yes, same. That's why we do so much parent coaching. And a lot of parents say, okay, I want my teenager to have a Zoom with you. You fix them.
Yeah.
I said, that's not how teenage brains or kids' brains work at all. Their frontal lobe is not developed. It's called scaffolding and structure to have the parents structure their time and structure their life so that they literally can't fail and they have a new way of doing things, new way of looking at things. But I love how you were talking about like what to say to them and to say more, or even in our case, we say a lot less when it comes to screen time. So there's not so much arguing and
Yeah.
there's just a structure because kids will take any opportunity to argue. So having the constructs around how to explain things that don't leave things open to arguments
Yeah.
is a really useful thing too that I think a lot of parents glean from our coaching time as well, and I'm sure you cover too. So,
Yeah, I think people think as speech therapists, I'm pro talk more, but
ah,
often it's talk less.
I
It's
love
provide a visual and set up the structure and the support, and then provide way less verbal prompts than you would actually think. Because often, as parents, we say the same thing over and over 6 or 7 times, and now we're about to lose our cool because we've said it
yes.
so many times. And so it's how can we move that back so you're doing less talking and less prompting.
I love that. I think that should be the biggest takeaway here is how to
Yeah.
structure that. I think that would save everybody a lot of sanity. And, that's definitely what we work towards too. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I think that's it. I'm definitely
Yeah.
happy to do a consultation if anybody is feeling like, stuck, or is this even the right fit? I talk to parents all the time. I'm happy to, chat with you. And if not, I'll, help direct you to a resource that might be more helpful.
Awesome. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thanks so much for
Yes.
coming on today. And I know all this information is really helpful, and it helps people get to know you a little bit better, and also me and our company. And I think it's just so important to have this collaboration, and integrative treatment, and just really surround yourself with a strong support system, in today's tech heavy world. So
Team approach. No one can do
yeah,
it all by themselves. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Well, thanks so much. And if you're watching, thank you for joining us, and we hope to hear from you soon.